Well, this video is definitely a first for me. Even though I've worked with more than my fair share of gaming keyboards and broke a few more of them than I care to admit, I've never reviewed one before. Something that I'm changing right now, and man did Razer send over one monster of a board to kick things off. Today we'll be checking out what seems to be one of the most impressive, feature-packed, macro-rich, and undeniably badass keyboards I've ever seen. Razer's BlackWidow V4 Pro. So, let's not waste any more time and jump right into it. Right after a word from me, letting you know that if you want to grab any of the parts mentioned in any of my videos, go and do it via the Amazon affiliate links in the video description down below. You get new whatever and help the channel while you're at it. Win-win. Okay, so if you're a minimalist or a tiny keyboard elitist, then you're probably not even watching this video. But if you are, then look away now because the BlackWidow V4 Pro is about as full size as it gets. Not only do you get all the keys you'll ever realistically need, but the board itself has a footprint like a Sasquatch, landing at about 46 centimeters in length and just over 15 centimeters in width. And that's without the included wrist rest attached. Slap that bad boy on and you're looking at a width of over 22 centimeters. It's also kind of a tall boy at around 4.5 centimeters from the bottom of the board to the tip of the tallest key. And that's without the little adjustable feet. The little plastic feet allow you to tilt the board by either 6 or 9 degrees, so at its highest you're looking at about 5.5 centimeters tall. Adding a little bit to the board's already hefty footprint are the two included detachable USB Type A to C cables. The first powers the board itself, while the second handles the pass-through USB port on the back. And while I appreciate USB pass-through, just how high quality and braided the cables are, and the fact that they're fully detachable, having two of them sticking out of the board looks a little bit messy and takes up even more desk space. A footprint this big could be a deal breaker for people with limited desk space, for anyone aiming for a minimalist setup, and if you're first and foremost a gamer, then the board is about as overkill as you can get. Almost. But if you do have the desk space for it and can actually make use of the board's many features, then the new BlackWidow seems like a very attractive option. It's also a relatively pricey option, at around $230 or 5,000 Rand here in South Africa, though I've seen it go on sale for closer to 200 more than a few times. That's kind of a lot if we're talking about a normal gaming keyboard, especially because it puts you in good custom keyboard territory. But we'll get to whether that pricing is worth it soon enough. Now, since this is a pro keyboard, we should probably take a look at what makes it so professional. And in case you forgot, yeah, I'm talking about those macros. To the left of the board are 5 dedicated macro keys that you can assign to do pretty much whatever you want in Synapse. If you're a macro king, you know the drill. I found that because it took me a while to get used to the board's layout with those keys where they are, I would accidentally hit them pretty often while trying to hit escape or tab. So I disabled those until muscle memory kicked in. And those weren't the only buttons I disabled. The 3 additional macro buttons on the side of the board are great because more macros equals more better, but I found them to be a bit more annoying than helpful purely because of their position. Without fail, whenever I handle this board to move it between typing and gaming mode, or just picking it up to stare at how pretty it is, my fingers inevitably press one or all of the side buttons, so instead of just learning how to properly move and handle the board, I just disabled those. Now, if it sounds like I'm really not making the most out of this macro monster of a keyboard, well, I'm not. But in my defense, I do actually still use all of the macro buttons. I assigned the M1 key to the Razer Hypershift key, and then assigned my macros to the other keys so that I'd have to press and hold M1 before activating any of them. It's not a smart solution, but it works for me, okay? And speaking of smart solutions, I absolutely love big knobs. Wait, that doesn't sound right. I absolutely love Razer's big command dial thingy over here. This is my first time working with a board that features a dedicated wheel like this, but it's hands down my favorite so far. The dial itself is a button that can be pressed to cycle through different modes, like adjusting keyboard brightness, horizontal scrolling, window zoom, and the like, and you can even add your own custom modes in Synapse, all of which can be assigned a different color. Pretty sweet. The wheel itself is very satisfying to turn, feeling very mechanical with all the all-metal construction, and with each step having a noticeable little bump. I haven't even scratched the surface of just how functional this little thing can be, but in Photoshop and Premiere Pro, I'm already starting to feel like I can't do without it anymore. As for aesthetics, the board is, in my totally objective opinion, drop dead gorgeous. The classic matte black gaming keyboard aesthetic works extremely well here, without being punctuated by any other typically gamery touches, except RGB of course, which sets it apart from a lot of the other boards in its class. That being said, I would have loved to see Razer offering the board in different colors, but that might just be my all-white dream setup talking. The brushed aluminum backplate, along with the matte finish of the double-shot ABS keycaps and the very pleasing and unoffensive font choice, gives the board an air of sophistication. One that, along with an abundance of macro keys, Razer's command dial, and the very premium looking and feeling multimedia controls, including the grippy metal volume roller, add even more to that whole pro vibe. And then our old pal RGB busts through the door and ruins everything, in the best way possible. Razer's RGB chops are up there with the best of the best, and with the BlackWidow V4 Pro, the company cements its top spot even more. The RGB implementation on this board is flawless. As you'd expect, it features bright per key lighting for all but the 3 macro buttons on the left side. Nothing too crazy there, but this is the BlackWidow V4 Pro. And what's more pro than some RGB? That's right, more RGB. 2 bright, perfectly diffused lighting zones flank both the left and right side of the board, providing it with some really neat underglow. Underglow that can be heavily extended by snapping on the magnetically attached wrist rest, which features a continuous light strip that runs throughout almost the whole thing. The included wrist rest is also mad comfortable, by the way, with this soft carbon fiber-like finish and soft but firm padding to see you through those many hours of gaming or writing scripts for review videos like this one. I think it's safe to say that if you're a fan of pretty lights, like me, you're gonna have your fill and then some with the V4 Pro. In fact, the only complaint I have about the lighting is that I would have liked to see Razer go even more over the top. Maybe with another light strip on the bottom of the board itself rather than on the wrist rest, and by switching to pudding style keycaps, which you can do yourself pretty easily since the switches use standard cross stems. It would be pretty over the top, but hey, an RGB nut can dream, right? But enough drooling. It's a sexy board, but it's 2023. We're not shallow out here anymore. It's personality that counts, and this board has a ton of it. The BlackWidow V4 Pro can be had in 3 different flavors, shipping with either Razer's clicky green, tactile orange, or yellow linear switches, the latter of which came with our board over here. Now, because I use my keyboards for typing about as much as I do for gaming, I generally prefer the feel of a tactile switch. But the yellow linear switches have actually grown on me a lot. They're rated for 100 million actuations, have a 3.5mm travel distance, a very quick actuation point of 1.2mm, and they require a pretty light touch at just 45 grams. The light actuation force requirement and short actuation point did take a bit of time to get used to, but after a lot of accidental key presses, once I got used to it, I really started to appreciate how fast and sensitive each key press feels. Something that might be accentuated even more by the board's max 8000 Hz polling rate. I'm no pro gamer, so I won't claim that I can personally notice a huge difference there, but since the impact on CPU performance is less than negligible, I don't see any reason not to floor the speed. Even with the switches being more geared towards gaming, the typing experience on the V4 Pro equipped with the yellow linears is still surprisingly solid. The switches feel buttery smooth, the travel distance is just enough to activate that satisfaction area of my brain, and the sound. I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said that the V4 Pro is one of the best sounding gaming keyboards I've ever used. The switches are sold as being silent, and while the switches themselves are extremely smooth and pretty quiet, I'm glad that typing away on this board isn't a silent experience. Razer did some impressive work on the sound profile for the V4 Pro, stuffing it with 2 layers of sound dampening material, which, alongside the solid aluminum backplate, the high-quality ABS keycaps, and the yellow linear switches, which include their own internal sound dampening, makes the board sound much more custom than I expected. Each key press sounds a little muted, producing a deeper, satisfying thocky sound rather than a higher frequency pingy sound like on my tactile cherry boards. And the lubed plate mounted stabilizers produce very little rattle, which makes even the big boy keys sound great. But don't just take my word for it. Smooth. While these switches have really grown on me during the testing of the V4 Pro, I do think Razer missed the mark by not making the board hot swappable, like they did with the 75% version. Like I said, the new yellow linears are surprisingly good, but locking people down to just one switch in today's market feels very limiting, especially at this price point. Razer might have also missed the mark with some people by not adding wireless functionality to the board, but I'm perfectly okay with it. The size and heft alone would glue this thing securely to my desk, never to part from it again, and with wireless you'd probably lose out on the brilliant lighting and the high polling rate, so it just wouldn't be worth it in my opinion. Oh, and for anyone wondering, Razer Synapse software has improved by leaps and bounds since the last time I've used it. I've been using it for a little over 2 months with the V4 Pro, and for much longer than that with the Death Adder V3 Pro, and I haven't experienced a single big glitch or major bug during all of that time. It still sucks that you need the software to enable some of the board's macro features, but at least the software is much more reliable than it used to be. Now, with all that out of the way, it should be pretty easy to recommend the Razer BlackWidow V4 Pro, right? Yeah, actually. This really is an amazing do-it-all gaming keyboard. It does take a while to get used to everything from the feeling and fast actuation of the yellow switches, as well as the placement of all of the macro keys. And yes, it is kind of a huge board that can be pretty inconvenient in tighter setups. But those, to me at least, are pretty minor gripes. Much bigger, and honestly my only real issue with the board, much like most of Razer's products, is the price tag. I couldn't personally justify paying $230 for any keyboard, gaming or otherwise, and I'm no macro king, so I'll probably never make full use of this board and all of its features. But that doesn't mean that the board isn't worth that price. In fact, this is one of the select few Razer products that legitimately seems worth the premium price it's selling for. Along with offering more macro functionality than most gamers will ever realistically need, the board is gorgeous, the lighting impeccable, the build quality and material choices are excellent, it's very comfortable to use for many hours on end, and the typing and gaming experience is more than a few notches above par for a gaming board. At around this price range, you'd be very hard pressed to find another gaming keyboard that brings as much to the table as the BlackWidow V4 Pro does. Unlike me, who has nothing more to bring because this video is done. Just a quick reminder to buy all of your things via my Amazon affiliate links in the video description to help the channel out. And thanks for watching. Drop a like and get subscribed if you wanna, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.